Okay, perfect. I'm joined today by the president-elect of the Columbia Board of Realtors, and I wanted to get your expert opinion. We've asked our viewers what they think about development all around Columbia, and a lot of our viewers are very focused on, have a lot to say about downtown development. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm generally in favor of the development that's gone on downtown. I think people are concerned about the character of downtown changing, but I think at the street level, you're going to continue to have shops and commercial and retail uses. If there's 6 or 8 stories of residential above that, I think some of those newer buildings actually look pretty nice. I think they're a net addition to downtown. I don't think it detracts from the character of downtown. It just, increases the physical appeal of downtown.
So a lot of our viewers are concerned that it's too student-focused, that we're forgetting about the larger, Columbia community. What would you say about that?
Well, I think anytime there's a dynamism in a real estate market, there's some catalyst that starts it. In this case, it was the student housing that came in downtown, but once you have a critical mass of people living, shopping in an area, that meets the target demographics for a number of businesses. Those businesses come in, like Lucky's Market, like the Walmart that's down near campus, and that creates amenities that other people enjoy. And so that draws other kinds of people to an area, and there's just a synergy of those things. So the students may have been the catalyst, but that's not the be-all, end-all of what's driving downtown.
So recently, city leaders voted to pause downtown development due to concerns about a sewer system, being able to uphold all of the growth. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't think the city's been very transparent about the infrastructure issues. I think both Councilman Trapp and Councilwoman Nauser have spoken eloquently on that issue in city council meetings. I think there are always infrastructure issues. Those can either be problems that are solved, or those can be an excuse if you want to create a barrier to further development. I don't think we've gotten a transparent discussion of what the actual infrastructure issues are downtown. I think they're being overblown by some people.
Interesting. We also learned through our survey that a lot of people are focused on one side of town being overdeveloped, or not necessarily overdeveloped, but seeing more building than a different part of town. Why do you think that is?
Well, any real estate market has a hot area. The technical term is the situs, Latin term, situs. That exists in any real estate market anywhere. In Columbia, it's the southwest part of town. That's not unusual. Like I said, lots of places, almost every place in the country has some area that's like that. I think those areas can be self-reinforcing. An area develops a reputation for being the best part of town to live in. When new people come to town, their coworkers, their peers tell them, hey, you need to stay in this area. This is the best place to live. And they overlook quality features of other parts of town. I think if you look at the statistics, all areas of Columbia appreciate at about the same rate. So if you invest in the Southwest, your house will increase in value from a higher dollar basis, but it won't increase at twice the rate of increase. You can't expect that compared to a different part of town. All of Columbia appreciates at about the same rate. So if you look at the investment aspect of buying a home, there's a lot to be said for other areas that are more economical.
So you mentioned the word reputation, how the southwest side has a reputation of being the better part of town. Besides word of mouth, how else does that come to fruition? How does that reputation build itself?
It's really just a long-standing issue. The southwest part of Columbia used to be the grasslands. It used to be the area inside what's now the ring of the business loop and stadium. It's always been the southwest part of Columbia, whether that was what we call the old southwest now that's close in, or whether it's Thornbrook and places further south and west now. It's just those issues have been present in Columbia for as long as I've been alive. I'll tell you that's just been the reputation, and it's self-reinforcing to a degree.
So we know that you can get more for your money on the north side if you're investing in a home. Are there any other differences in the cost of living, north side versus south side, east side, west side?
Well, I think the cost of living is similar. Your property taxes are based on the value of your home. So if your home is less expensive, then your property taxes are less expensive. But gas costs about the same, groceries cost about the same. It's primarily the property value differences.
So what do you think impacts trends, moving trends, growth trends in certain areas?
Well, I think initially population drives economic development. So if you're a company, grocery store, retail store of some kind, you have target demographics before you're going to consider putting a store at a certain place. Southwest part of town has higher population, it has a higher household income probably than other places of town. Those are the target demographics that mean that stores and businesses will relocate there to serve those, what they consider their target demographics. So, you have a certain critical mass of population and a certain median income, and that draws, businesses. So it's kind of a self-reinforcing cycle.
So you told me before we started that you've been here since the 70s. What trends have you seen throughout all those decades?
Oh, I think, Columbia has continued to grow. I think the population was 40-something thousand when I got here in '77. It's over 100,000 now. But Columbia continues to be, a relatively economical place to live. It's a Midwestern town. It's not a major metro like St. Louis or Kansas City. We don't have the same kinds of urban problems with traffic and things like that to that degree. Columbia has gotten busier. It used to take 10 or 12 minutes to get from one side of town to the other. Now it's more like 20 or 25.
Right.
But it's not like living in Kansas City or St. Louis or Washington, D.C. or someplace like that. So there's still, a Midwestern ambience to the place and quality of life.
So as a realtor, if someone's tuning in, for the first time right now, what would you say to them if they're looking to buy a home in Columbia?
Well, I would say, don't foreclose your options. Look around. We help buyers that might be in the upper end of the price range for the north part of town, and so they can also look all over town in that price range. But sometimes they find that they prefer the value that they get for their dollar on the north side of town.
Right. Great. Let's see. Okay, I think I've gotten through almost all of my questions. In your opinion, what makes a neighborhood desirable?
Well, that depends on the personal preferences of the person that's moving in. If you're a younger family with children, oftentimes they like to be in neighborhoods where there are other families with children of similar age. If you're a retired person and don't have children, maybe the opposite is true. So different people look for different things. Some people prefer, a little bit of elbow room, a larger lot. Some people prefer not to have a yard to mow. So, there's a variety of things that are different based on the individual circumstances of the person. What
are your thoughts on how crime and safety impacts how a homeowner, what a homeowner thinks about before making a purchase?
If you look at the Columbia Police Department or the Boone County Sheriff's website, you can see that crime occurs all over town. I think if you have a bias against a particular part of town and you see a news story about shots fired in that part of town, that reinforces your bias. But if you actually look at the statistics, I think you'll see that Columbia overall is a pretty safe place to live everywhere.
Do you have any last thoughts for our viewers about?
No, I would just say that, you mentioned the city's recent moratorium or administrative delay on development downtown. The city is contemplating a number of changes to its zoning code over the next year. Those will be debated at planning and zoning and put into effect. I encourage everybody to look at that because they don't just affect the downtown area. There's a number of provisions in that code that will make residential subdivisions much more expensive to develop. And that will raise the price of homes everywhere in Columbia going forward, new construction. So, our affordability issue is going to become more and more challenging if people aren't paying attention to those aspects of the new zoning code. It's not just downtown that's affected, it's all of Columbia.
And you said that'll be in the next year?
Yes, probably over the next 6 months. Those are being debated now at the Planning and Zoning Commission level, and they'll come before the City Council soon.
Right, okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's perfect. I think we're good to go.